Did I really get to know me better while wearing the NutriSense CGM? In this video, I'll share that, yeah, I sure did. Just Steffi here to make every day count. Join me in my journey as I get back on track to a more active, healthier, and intentional life. Please take a moment to gently tap on that like button, consider subscribing and tapping the notification bell so you know each time I upload a new video. Now, most of you don't know me because I've done like maybe 10 videos, and actually most people I do know don't even know that I'm doing this. But let me give you a little bit of background information that'll help. I eat mainly a low-carb, healthy fat diet, sometimes keto, sometimes carnivore, sometimes ketovore, basically meat-based with some vegetable, nuts, and seeds that I can tolerate. But I do have cheat days on the weekends, usually where I'm more relaxed with what I eat and how often I eat. I also intermittent fast, usually 16/8 or OMAD. I'll leave a link to my intermittent fasting videos up here and in the description below. Now, before getting the CGM, I was already checking my fasting blood glucose and my blood ketones with the Keto Mojo, usually before breaking my fast. And mainly to understand what my fasting blood glucose is to make sure it's within range and to see what my blood ketones were doing. Now, my plan for the first 2 weeks was to eat what I normally eat during the week and weekends. I'll share my interactions with my personal coach. And as a reminder, she is a registered dietitian, and I'll be calling her M. I should note that I'm talking about trends to my numbers here, and that these are numbers that are specific to me. So every one of us are unique and different, and the specific numbers are less important, but I'll aim to talk about the trends instead. And for me, I generally am on the lower end of the range, so M and I decided it would be okay to lower my normal range values from the app default. So what did I learn about me? I'm doing a lot of things right, so yay me. My low-carb meals are indeed low carb, so no major glucose shifts there. And exercise does help keep my blood glucose level. I also learned that the time you eat is as important as what you eat, and knowing what cheats do to my blood glucose makes me rethink them. Either being choosier about what cheat foods I have, but also how often I should have them. But let's jump into some of the details. Okay, my first spike, which really was not that big of a spike, but I was surprised by it. I ate my most favorite seed crackers and nuts to break my fast, and I went up 34 points, which when you look at it is not really that high, but for me, it was a pretty high increase. What I know is that when we're fasting, right before we break our fast, we're actually more carb sensitive, which actually M also confirmed. So am I never eating seed crackers and nuts again? M suggested I break my fast with protein first, and then eat the crackers and the nuts after. So no, I just may not use them to break my fast initially, and instead will experiment as M suggests, and see which scenarios will limit that glucose shift. I also learned that eating pork rinds did not significantly increase my blood glucose, so we'll definitely be keeping that food right up there with the foods to break my fast. Then there's Chinese food. We get Chinese food once a week or maybe every other week. Chinese food is one of my cheat foods. How about you? Do you have a cheat food? Leave a comment below. This particular week, I went all out and ate noodles plus rice plus mushi pork with the wrapper and sesame beef, which is lightly breaded, has a lightly breaded coating, and it has a sweetened sauce. And yowzers, my blood glucose went up by 45 points. And it seemed to go down by the time I went to bed, but I saw another increase in the middle of the night. So there's a few things here. One, I wasn't surprised with the blood glucose rise after I ate. Considering what I ate, I totally expected those numbers. I didn't expect the other spike while I slept. M said it's likely due to a delayed glucose response because of the combination of carbs and fat that I ate. So this is good to know. I never really thought about what my blood glucose was doing in the middle of the night, or that it would have had that type of response. I was also surprised that it took until almost midday the next day of fasting to get back to my normal levels, which means if I chose to eat breakfast the next day, and if I ate a higher carb breakfast, say like cereal, granola, or bagels, my blood glucose levels would continue to rise. My body wouldn't have had time to recover from all that extra glucose from the night before, and it's storing it as fat. So let's think about that. If my BG is consistently high, my body's producing insulin to manage that glucose, and it manages it by storing it as fat. So if I'm not losing fat, it's because I'm continuing to store fat. So thank goodness I intermittent fast, because I gave my body time to recover back to its normal levels. Now I talk about the benefits I saw when I started intermittent fasting in this video. I'll leave a link above and in the description below. I did mention earlier an elevated BG at night after eating a high carb meal. But what about when I eat a low carb meal? Now I usually eat at 7 because I go to bed by 9:30 or 10 p.m. So I wanted to make sure that I have enough time to digest my food. What I see is that there weren't any real spikes, so whew, thank goodness, but my BG was still a little higher than usual. If it's usually in the 70s, I saw that it would go up to the 80s, but without any major swings, so that's still good. If I eat later, say I ate at 8:30 p.m., my BG didn't go up that much, but I did get a spike in the middle of the night. Still below normal, but again, it wouldn't go back to normal levels until the middle of the day. And that's with fasting. So Em and I chatted. Late meals can do this, and she even shared an article that talks about chrononutrition. Okay. It covers the intersection of our circadian biology and diet. So super, super interesting reading. It's fantastic that, she's not just typing in info, she's actually also leading me to a lot of scientific articles. So that's really cool. Now, exercise. My exercise consists of usually doing some sort of HIIT training, whether it's on the treadmill or I'll do a YouTube HIIT workout. It's usually 30 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. I do daily walks and some strength training. Now I can see that keeping active made sure that my blood glucose was level. Honestly, in these 2 weeks, I probably could have been more consistent with exercise, but I was happy to see that when I did exercise, there were no major shifts in my blood glucose. But I'm going to keep an eye on this as I work on getting more consistent workouts and more strength training in. Now, I wasn't planning on changing how I ate these first 2 weeks, but honestly, once you start looking at the data, it's hard not to start making changes. So one of the things that I did change was the following weekend, based on my cheats and based on my chats with Em, I decided to do my higher carb cheat meals during the day rather than at night. The elevated blood glucose readings at night while I slept really bothered me. Sure enough, the higher carb foods earlier in the day before 6 p.m. didn't have as much of an effect on my BG in the middle of the night. And the other thing that I learned was with a higher BG at night, I felt more restless in my sleep. It's something I'm tracking now, and I'll share more on that soon to see how it affects my sleep. But this change in my eating window will be interesting to see what the long-term effects will be. So my 2-week summary. I love wearing the CGM and the information it provides, and having a personal coach to walk me through the data with her insights, rather than me trying to Google it all. I've learned so much in 2 weeks. Also, Em contacts me regularly. She'll reach out, checking in with me, and based on my numbers, she'll provide insights and more information, and she's always there to answer my questions and bring up stuff that maybe I didn't notice in my charts. She taught me how to read deltas in the AUC, which is average under the curve. So I'm now using that as a quick means to understand my meals, snacks better, as well as my exercise. And I'll share more about that in a later video. Now, I think the service with the CGM is great for people who know very little about glucose to those who are out there biohacking their health and are well-read and well-versed in the science. I'm somewhere in the middle where I've read a lot about diabetes and blood sugar. But to those who are just starting out, gosh, this is such a great resource and tool. You get your data and you get a personal coach to walk with you through the possible changes you could make to make a healthier you and minimizing the guesswork because there's data. It's a game changer. It's so exciting to me to have this data and this service available so that we can make informed decisions about our health. So where to next? I extended my subscription with NutriSense. I'm planning to continue experimenting with the foods I eat, focusing a little more on exercise and sleep. I'll also be sharing those results with you soon. Now, I hope you found this useful. Please make sure to gently tap the like button and share with someone who may find this helpful. Thanks for joining me in making every day count so we can live our healthiest and happiest life. See you in the next one.